So A is distinguish between projects and processes. Most church leaders never think about either one, let alone calendar them and create systems to implement them. Now, pause right there. Think about calendaring uh, some of the things that we're going to highlight throughout this training. I don't want to list them yet, but as we walk through this training module, maybe just have a scrap sheet of paper or just make a mental note or open up a note on your computer or in your phone, wherever you're watching this from, and just kind of make down some notes if we come across something that you don't calendar, just so you can think, oh, all right. It's no guilt, no shame. What we're trying to do is just do things a little bit better than we did them before. And as we do that, that water level is going to rise. Remember the buckets analogy that we looked at way back in the first module? As we do things just a little bit better, everything gets better. And part of that's going to be calendaring these projects and processes. Now, let's begin by highlighting the difference between projects and processes in practical terms. Projects and processes. A project is this in my vernacular, my definition is we're going to use in this module. It is a one-off item that's done generally once a year, or you could even say seasonally. Let me give you some examples. Christmas, Easter, youth trips, conferences, retreats. Those are projects. They are one-off items generally done about once a year. Maybe some of them are done twice. The tip is this: look 6 to 9 months into the future and begin calendaring everything you need to do in order to make projects happen. Now, I described that in great detail in this bonus module that's available for you if you're watching this in the online course. If you'll look down below in the bonus modules, you'll find what's called the live event blueprint. It tells you how to plan, when and where to promote, all of the essentials of pulling off a live event. That module tells you exactly what to do with the live event 20 weeks out from the time you first market. Even maybe in some instances, if you draw it back, it'll say if it's a big event, do it even this far out. So for instance, something like Christmas, I would say plan that thing 5 to 6 months in advance. Whenever we do a live workshop or a live training, we start talking about it and start planning it and actually developing the schedule 5 to 6 months in advance. I'm recording this in January. In about 6 weeks, we are going to do a Warrior Hope workshop. That's where we train leaders that come from all over the country to learn how to use the Warrior Hope curriculum that helps veterans overcome PTSD and moral injury and then step into their next mission. We've been talking about that event since August. We talked about it for months before tickets even went live. And here's what I'm saying that you need to do with youth retreats, what you need to do with conferences, what you need to do with Christmas, with Easter, is you need to start living 6 months ahead of the calendar from when those things begin. Even in some instances, 9 months. Here's been my experience with leaders. And by the way, that workshop training, it's about a 45-minute video. It has a print off document that literally tells you, hey, T minus this much time, here's what to do. And then you write in the date and you know, okay, that week I'm going to focus on that. T minus the next week, do this. And it breaks it apart to where you can do, in some instance, 15 minutes to 30 minutes of work a week instead of getting down to the end and you are just under the gun and stressed. My experience with a big project is when you work on it a little bit at a time, your brain power frees up. You start thinking about it in some of the blank space when you're driving or when you're out running, you're exercising. All of a sudden, the best ideas come together and you just write them down. And then it's there. You're never hurried. Your brain and mind don't work as well under stress as they do when they're free. And I know everybody that I talk to that goes, oh, my mind works great when I'm under a deadline. Oh, I mean, you know what? You think it works great now? You ought to try it. You have a super high ceiling. I guarantee it. If you're doing this great under a deadline, think about how much greater you'll be when you don't have a deadline. So again, my experience with leaders, when I was working with a coaching organization that led 50 plus church leaders, I was flabbergasted how many of the pastors stressed about Christmas and Easter every single season as if those two events snuck up on them and they are chasing their tail at the last minute, running around like the proverbial chicken with the head chopped off. Think about it. These are two major events each year in Christendom. It's not like the Olympics where we do it once every 4 years. Or like, is this the year or is that the year? Oh no, this is the year. And the core message of both of those events never really changes. Like we know what the story is. We know the bottom line for each event. It's not like, hey, we're doing a comedy this year or a tragedy. What's the subject of the play event? What's going to be the theme this year? I mean, it is the same time, same theme, same message. Yet these leaders let the events sneak up. And as a result of this, this is what I want you to see, thereby failing to serve everyone at the highest level they could and adding far more stress than needed. Pro tip. Many of the stresses that we face are actually systems tensions in disguise. And what will happen is if you will, it's probably a stressor, isn't it? Not a stress. Whether it's people, whether it's planning, whether it's a lack of time, it's scheduling. Here's the deal. If you fix the system, the stress usually eases significantly. Now, you're never going to get rid of all of it, ever. But if you'll work ahead of the schedule and if we'll put in a process that actually enables you to do what you're trying to achieve, you will be astounded how much better it will be and how much easier at the same time. Okay, that's what you do with the project. Those are one-off items done generally once a year, maybe once a season. Process is a regular, repeating, all the time activity. Some examples of those: weekly worship service. That's a process. Following up with visitors, that should be a process. Other repeating activities that you do, look at the bottom of this slide, such as choirs, discipleship classes, volunteer training. Those are processes. In the middle of the slide, I say something like this: what might be a project for some could be a process for others because we all serve in different areas. Let me give you an example on that. This one right here, choir. A choir might not be something you normally do, but you might say, hey, we are going to have what is called we used to do a cantata. It's a big group of people singing, big choir thing. Back in the Baptist church when I was growing up, it was phenomenal every single year. A choir. Well, they had a choir all the time. I mean, every week they had a choir, but during that special season, you could join in and be part of the Christmas program pageant. So that really was a project. Here's the deal. It's going to be different for every single organization. You just need to identify the difference for you. What is a project? Meaning it's a one-off item done generally once a year, or, once a season, maybe twice a year. What is a process? Regular, repeating, all the time activities. Again, weekly worship services are processes. Following up with visitors, processes. Small group schedule, generally, or Sunday school are processes. New members classes, assimilations are processes. I think that missions in your community should be a process. So remember the flow we discussed in the lesson about the path? That was first gear. I think that was module number 2. We talked about gear number 1. Module number 1 was the intro. I think missions in your community needs to be a process. You need to constantly, consistently be sending people through. They come in from the community. They get connected to your church. They're part of the congregation. They become committed. They join the core, and boom, you send them back. And you don't send them back for a once-a-year serve day. Let's be real. A once-a-year serve day, it's great for the Instagram post. It's phenomenal for social media, but you need to be in your community more than that. So missions in your community need to be a repeating process at the rhythm you decide. It doesn't have to be once a month. It might be once every 2 to 3 months, but create a way for it to consistently occur. Maybe you run it through small groups. Maybe different missions are run by different groups or age brackets in your church, like the youth do something, the college do something. The beauty of it is that we all get to decide for ourselves and at the same time learn with and from each other. I think that prayer and the prophetic, they need to be a process. They need scheduled calendar time to both plan when you're going to do it and to do it. Sermon teaching and prep, both of those need protected process time. I would say this, and I'm going to highlight these last two and spell them out, particularly because these modules are created with a technological slant of communicating all your processes online. I think taking your sermon, placing it online, pushing it through social media and other forms of online marketing. Let's use the word marketing because we're really kind of getting our name out there. I think that should be a process. And I think handling social media in your organization, in your church, in your ministry should be a process. Now, since those last two are so important to the technological side, knowing, that they fit in with the bigger picture of everything else, let's view the final two on the list, as many churches make these two afterthoughts. So most churches don't think about taking your sermon, placing it online, and pushing it through social media and other forms of online marketing. They just kind of slap it on YouTube. Most churches don't think about social media. They just kind of last minute go, oh, we haven't posted in a while. We need to post something. So somebody go post something. So again, let's view the final two on the list, as many churches make these afterthoughts. Yet to be clear, these can be growth engines that are easy to implement when done with a process, with a system. Let's talk about this one first. Taking your sermon, placing it online, and pushing it through social media and other forms of online marketing. Let me tell you where this training comes from. A couple years ago, I was sitting at Panera Bread with a pastor, and I was actually attending his church. And he asked me, I was doing, some business things at the time, and he said, "Man, how are you guys on social media all the time? And where does the content come from? Like, how in the world are you getting that much content out without running out of something to say, without running out of ideas?" I see it on a blog, I see it on a post, I see you go live, and then I see another blog, and then I see a podcast, and then I see a video, and then like, how are you not running out of stuff to say? And I told him, I said, "Man, let me sketch it out for you." So I got a piece of paper and started drawing out what we do, and it hit me in real time. I said, "Man, this is exactly what you could do because you have." I was just doing business. Like, you have the most powerful message on the planet. And it is the thing that people need to know. And honestly, most pastors do a great job of delivering that content every Sunday. They study for it. They take it extremely seriously. They don't hand it off last minute, like some guys I've seen done at business conferences or at retreats do. They really want to get better at the craft of it. They pray, they prepare, they plan, and they generally deliver. Man, I've sat through very few sermons where I've not learned something new and seen a fresh glimpse of, my relationship with my Heavenly Father. So I told him, I said, "Here's what you do. This is what we do. You take your full talk, you place it someplace noteworthy on your website where people can access it, the full talk." So you'll see, like with some of the full talks I do in a course, I'll generally have that course. It's going to be behind a paywall, so people can't access it unless they pay to get it. But if a church, you probably don't want to put it behind a paywall. You just put it somewhere noteworthy. It might be featured. It might be free access behind a paywall where you got to register to get through it. That's what I would do if I was at a church. I would put it somewhere where people sign up, they get it. And it's all kind of nested there, kind of like a free Netflix type of scenario. but you put it somewhere noteworthy on the site where people can access it. That is step number one. And so, he understood that. I said, step number two is you take that complete talk. It's probably like a 35-minute talk. And by the way, I put on the screen here on video. Let's just assume it's video. If you're not ready for video, don't do it on video. Just put it on a podcast. But step number two would be this: pull approximately 3 to 5 minute clips from your talk. Now, those clips from the talk are going to be for social media. They're going to be for a blog. They're going to be for YouTube. I would not put my entire sermon on YouTube, I don't think. I would put clips from the sermon on YouTube and link people to the full sermon that's on my website for all the reasons that I told you before about building your home base on the website. So here's what you do. You have the complete talk and you pull out a couple of short clips. Now, on any given sermon, you might have 2, you might have 4, you might have 3. This isn't necessarily like a specific amount where you got to have this exact many, but it's just kind of a general goal to think and shoot for. Now, these little videos, they might include your main ideas. They could be illustrations. They might be interesting facts, unexpected conclusions. They're all just elements that you see are interesting, and you put those together and you serve those out where people could see them. Step number 3 is this. You then pull 3, again, approximately 30 to 60-second clips out of that for Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and stories all across social media. So here's what it looks like so far. Step number 1, you got the complete talk. Step number 2 is we chop that up and we take, a few of these clips. By the way, there is software that'll do this. There are companies that'll do this for you. There's actually software that's smart enough to go in and just kind of pull this stuff. The web software that we use that I'll recommend to you at the end of all these modules that will provide you templates for your church and everything on, that'll host your podcast, to do everything that I would do if I was doing this again from scratch today. The software that I actually use will go in and do this for you. So you pull out 3 to 5 minute clips. You're going to let those live as a blog post or on social media. And then step 3, you're going to get some even shorter ones out of those. Now notice, some of these may be able to pull 1 clip out. Some may have 2. Some of these you may not even have a 3 to 5 minute clip. You may just go straight to one of the shortest clips. Again, think in terms of art, not science. The reason we do it for 60 seconds is because some of the social media platforms treat a 60-second clip as different than a 90-second or 120-second. And really, this just kind of gives us some delineation and variety. You got the shortest. So it's kind of, long and then short clips and then the shortest clips. You put them all together. Here's what you're going to do with them. You're going to put that complete talk somewhere on your website. You decide where you're going to do that. Again, if I was doing it, I would put it behind a quote paywall, but make it free access where people register, they log in, and it kind of organizes all of their content right there for them. And it lets them, when they finish off with one sermon or one talk, know, okay, I finished that one, now I'm at this one. It just kind of remembers where they are, just like Netflix does. And then you can serve up other related things to them, like your membership class and other resources. It sounds like this would all be so complicated, but again, let me emphasize to you, the technology is absolutely the easiest piece of all of that. The technology at this point is almost a non-issue. You can hire people to do it really cheaply. The technology is plug and play. The bigger hurdle is defining your discipleship framework and then aligning a strategy that moves people all the way from the community into the core and then sends them back again as fully devoted, fully deployed, fully developed disciples. Now, notice what I've gotten out of this. Again, left side of the screen, I got 1 complete talk. So that's my sermon on Sunday, or that's, in my world, that might be a keynote speech that I gave, or that might be a talk that I gave for a course or some kind of training. So you can use this for multiple things, is the reason I'm saying that. Don't just think in terms of Sunday morning only. And then we're pulling some short clips out of that. We might get 3, we might get 5. Sometimes we might get 2, we might get, 7. Step 3, we might have 5. We might have 15, 60-second clips. We can use these each as a separate social media post. See the difference there? Now, step 4, we don't stop. I told pastor friend there at Panera Bread, find a few quote cards, pictures, other things for social post as well. So the quote cards might be literally take a snap of the verse in your Bible. The picture might be take a picture of you studying, or the place where you're studying, or the picture might be a photograph of you delivering the talk on Sunday, or a photograph of people who were there on Sunday, or a photograph of your church family of some concept. If you're talking about serving others on Sunday, it might be a picture of people actually doing mission work in your community on Sunday. You start saving all this. These are going to be for your social media posts. You're going to use everything, videos of various lengths. You can use graphics. If you have slides that you created for your talk, you can use some of those slides for social media. Here's a hint. You can reuse some of those in books. You can use some of those graphics in emails. You can use quote cards of you. So some quotes that you had that you think, hey, this really quote from Sunday really highlights what I wanted to say. Or, hey, when I was studying, this quote that I read from this commentary stood out, or this quote from another author, or this quote from another pastor friend of mine, or somebody in our church family really said something to me that it really kind of spoke to me. You see, include that pictures, you include those as well. Now, when you do that, from step 1, you've got a complete talk. Step 2, you've got all these short clips, 3 of them. Step 3, I say you got 3 shortest clips. You might have, let's just say, let me change that in real time. You might have 5 to 15. It might be different. Step 4, you've got 3 to 5 graphics. Some of those might be pictures. Some of those might be quote cards. Some of those might be new things, old things. You've got all of that together. Now you have an arsenal of information that you can share. Now, most people, when it comes to, I've said this before in an earlier module, to the concept of social media, they wonder, they worry about what will I say and when will I say it. What I just gave you is an overload of more content than you need really for weeks on social media. And we got it from just one talk. Now, as me and the friend, the pastor, we're sitting there back at Panera Bread. Remember, that's where we were. We're dialoguing through all of this. I told him, I said, the reality is if you're working through all of this, and you know that you're going to share certain quotes on social media the following week, if even you might hold on to some of this and share it 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, months even down the line. Setting it up on the front end and going ahead and making that quote card and writing up kind of the copy that you're going to use on social media, or going ahead and saying, okay, I know that I got this main point that's coming up. This will be a great point that I can use to communicate with people that are there on Sunday, as well as people that are not there. Setting up some of this on the front end, it actually helped with the whole study process. You're writing some of your own posts. A lot of guys don't get into that because it takes so much time. But if you start integrating it with your sermon prep time, it's a pro tip. Setting up some of this on the front end and actually writing some of your own posts will help with your message prep. And as a result, you'll deliver better, I think, in my opinion, on Sunday. This is where that whole element of skill and the Spirit all starts fitting, aligning, working together. Now, here's another byproduct of all of this. Let's just be real about it. Half the people in your congregation probably aren't there to hear the message on Sunday. And it's not that they're all just kind of laying out because they're lazy. Some of them are serving in other areas in your church. Some of them are traveling with family. They're going to see friends. They're on vacation. Some of them are at work, serving our community as law enforcement, as firemen, as first responders, as healthcare workers in incredible ways. Some of them are resting because of the week they've just been through or the week that they're going through. half the people, for whatever reason, aren't in the room at that time. Now, by doing this and setting all of this in motion, you create a process that not only gives the people who were there a review of some of the most important points that hit the hardest, you also give the sermon new life to people who were never in the room on that given Sunday, as well as you set it almost into an evergreen status where people months and years from now can come back into this content at the point it's most relevant to them. Particularly if you set it up in such a way on your website with that complete talk where it can be found, whether it can be repurposed, whether it can be reshared. Particularly if you use some scheduling software for your social media posts, that means you can share it, reshare it at some point in the future without having to rewrite it, without having to re-look at it. It will serve you incredibly well and empower you to amplify that message for months, for years to come, giving it new life that far outlasts what it can achieve in the room the first time you deliver it. Now, when you post this all online, here's what I want you to do is to link everything back up the line to your website. That means when you've got these shortest clips, you share them on social media and you want to share them to the post from which they were taken. So that post might be a blog post on your website that gives people a clear call to action that takes them to, hey, you can get this whole sermon series. Or, hey, this talk is about finance and handling your money. Clear next step is, hey, we've got a budget template online that's going to give you a calculator of how to get out of debt, a debt snowball. Or, hey, this whole sermon talk is on, how to reorder your time and how to align your time with the purposes and plans of God so that there is priority to your schedule and routine. Hey, we've got a free planner that you can download that's going to help you order this. Oh, hey, this sermon is about reading through the scripture and really getting the word inside of you. Clear next step for an opt-in. Hey, here's a Bible reading plan. Here's 3 of them that we put together for you. You can take advantage of any of these. So the best practice is really always going to be a clear, obvious next step for everyone. Sometimes that next step is to click here to see the full post on our website, or click here to read everything else that we put online, or click here to sign up, or click here to take action. If you're teaching a sermon about mission, the call to action might be, hey, this year there are several local opportunities. Join the list here and we're going to let you know when they come up. Or, hey, we're doing one 30 days from now. Sign up here if you want to join us. And if you can make it, great. If not, we'll let you know when the next one is. Now, everything that I just told you about that talk, it is available in a bonus module that you have access to. It is called Transform Your Talk into 2 Months of Media. So it will outline how to give your keynote, your talk, your message, your sermon new life by taking parts of it, spreading it, which parts that you need to use across multiple platforms. And from that one talk, I really believe that you can get out 2 months of social media. Now, here's what that'll let you do. First of all, you'll never run out of content because you've got some of the best content on the planet. Second of all, if you've got a visiting speaker and you think, well, I don't know that we're necessarily going to put their stuff, you might want to, you might not. Or if let's just say 1 week, you don't hit the ball out of the park every week. Or maybe somebody fills in for you and you don't reuse it across all your platforms for whatever reason. Having one talk turn into 2 months of social media, it enables you to still have far more than enough information that you need to share across every platform. All right, so that's what I would do. I said, hey, we're going to talk about getting a process for taking your sermon, placing it online, pushing it through social media and other forms of online marketing. That's what I would do about that. Let me tell you a process. Again, this is a process, not a project. Process. Implement it into the regular routine, meaning you don't have to do it. Other people can do it for you. Social media is the next one we want to hit. So here's some of the things we want to do with social media. We want to leverage that talk and social media to grow your online audience and then invite people in closer. Now, here's how I would do that. We're going to use social media and your talk and your website to bring people in closer. Step number one, I would create a website using the guidelines we outlined above. That means I would avoid the 7 mistakes. I would align with the 7 best practices, and I would be sure to collect the contact info of your visitors so that you can communicate with them. All right, so this right here is super important. We want to collect their contact info so we can communicate with them. Step 2, place regular content on your site, your full sermon, pieces of it in blog form, and at the bottom of each post, always have a clear, obvious next best step to a related opt-in. Sign up for this full series. Sign up for this PDF. Register here for this event that we're doing. That's what you're going to pay. Place the shortest clips is step 3. Other forms of content on social media. So that includes the short clips, the quote cards, the pictures. That includes everything else that we highlighted, using all of these videos, graphics, quote cards, pictures, everything. We're going to post that on social media, but in the comments, we want to direct people back to the big, newer content on the website. That might be the full talk. It might be 3 to 5 minute clips on the blog post. By the way, let me say right here on YouTube, you can put these shortest clips called shorts. That's what they call them. And instead of putting my full sermon on YouTube, I would actually put what would be the 3 to 5 minute clip and then link people back to your website with the full talk. And don't pull the lazy way out, by the way. Don't just say sermon December the 1st, 2023. Man, give people a small paragraph there under it. Hey, here's the main idea. Here's the scripture. Here's what you're going to learn. You need that information anyway, so that you've got it as a soundbite when you walk up into the pulpit. Go ahead and craft that. Get it to your secretary. Get it to the people that are running your tech processes, whoever's running the online play for you. Go ahead and get that. Remember, you don't have to do all of this, but there are things that need to come from you. And even on that YouTube, there in the comments, put a link back to the church website, specifically to the bigger talk, not just the homepage. Put a link to where people can take action with you to get involved with something you discussed, whether it's discipleship groups, small groups, whether it's a new book that's out that you guys have, some other resource that you're promoting. Put all of that there. Remember, here's where they go. The complete talk goes on your website. The short clips, meaning the 3 to 5 minute, those are sideways clips, right? Just like a television. Put those on a blog post. I'd even say those you could put on YouTube as well. Remember, don't drive people from your website to social media. Drive people from social media the other way to your website. And then those shortest clips, you want to put those as separate social media posts. Drive people back up the line all the way up to your website. I'll say this too. Here's step number 4. You're going to email everyone on your email list each week to let them know about the new content. Where are these people coming from? Well, back up here, you create a website in step number 1 where you collect the contact info of your visitors. So each week you email them, let them know, hey, the sermon of the week is up. Here's what we learned. Okay, and by the way, just a tip for you. If you took a moment to write out a good, 2 to 3 sentence overview of that sermon, just list some of your main scripture references, not every single scripture that you reference in the talk. Some of the action steps and application that people can do as a result of that. And then you use that for the blog post. You have the content that you need for YouTube. You have the content that you also need for that email. And that's going to direct people, in incredible ways of communication. Here's what I'd say, another pro tip. A lot of times people say, well, I don't want to email on my list every week because that could kind of get spammy or it looks like spam. Here's what I would say to you, just to be clear, say this, with all gentleness and tenderness. If you're not emailing people because you're afraid they'll unsubscribe, then you're treating them as if they already have. And as a result, you're not serving them at all. Okay, you get it? If you're not emailing them, you're not serving them. Go ahead and email them. Here's another kind of pro tip about this as well. I didn't put the slide here on this. Sometimes your email looks like spam. And the reason it does that is because the email servers, the gatekeepers, treat it like spam because you don't send out enough emails for it to not look like spam. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you get in the habit of sending regular email, I would send it if I was running a church at least twice a week. I'll tell you more about that when we get to a future module here. But if I was doing that, I think that your email server will at some point realize in their server, oh, hey, this looks like email that they normally receive and they tend to open. So I'm going to let this go through and let them see this and not push it to a spam filter. So the truth is, most churches don't email enough. They don't communicate with their people enough. They spend way too much energy on social media. They spend way too much energy on things like that that don't get the most results. What you need to do is focus where even content creators and course creators and some of the marketers and online people say they spend their energy, because what they've done is they figured out that that actually works to communicate more clearly. Now, I do have another bonus module for you. And the reason I'm kind of highlighting this in the middle of the training is so you go, okay, I need to know more about that. Just take a note, middle framework. You got access to all these slides as well. That's going to be a great module right there. The content calendar is going to help you figure out what to say it, when to drop in all these short clips, when to drop in quote cards, pictures, announcements, other things that you want to say online. So don't let it overwhelm you. You can see the training as well on how to do 30 days of good social media in just 3 hours. I'm going to come back to that later on. Okay. That is point A. Point A is to distinguish between projects and processes, realizing that most church leaders never think about either one, let alone calendar them and create systems to implement them. So as we're preparing for the next main point here, that means you need time on the calendar that's going to deal with all of this.